Okay, guys, thank you so much for being here. This is an outstanding night for you as well as myself. Let me just say a couple of things. Number one, real quick, before I met this man, I had everybody's program. I'm not going to mention names of all the companies and the people, but just know anybody that says they lose lease purchase, I bought their program. And when I went down to Jacksonville, Florida, and I met Scott and his team, let me tell you, from the moment I met him, I started doing deals. And you know how I am about this. You know how hard I am about this. Well, you're sitting with the best guy in the business, as far as I'm concerned. No question about it. So I wanted us to get started. This is an outstanding night. And so without further ado, Scott Ulmer, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Greg. I am honored to be here, and I appreciate those kind words. They always mean a lot. And man, great job in putting this together. And again, thank you for having me here. So, all right. Well, for those that are on, welcome. Thank you for taking a few minutes out of your evening to spend with me and with Greg. I am going to do my best to keep it exciting, entertaining. Greg will tell you I like to share funny jokes. I'm very much a comedian on the side. No, I'm teasing because most of my jokes seem to fall flat. But at the end of the day, we always want to make sure that we give some good nuggets, some good takeaways anytime people are spending time with us. And so I'm excited to be here, excited to kind of go through my presentation here. And so without further ado, let me go ahead and hop in here. So we will take questions at the end if there's time. And we're going to try to keep this to about 45 minutes, somewhere in that range. So the 3 hours that was at the registration, don't fret. We won't be here for 3 hours. So, all right. So I want to just give you the title of what the presentation is: How to Find Financial Freedom Through a Complete Real Estate Investing Business. And we've highlighted the word complete for a reason. And you're going to see exactly why here as I get into this a little further. And instead of being a prisoner to just one dead end strategy, and again, I'm going to define exactly what that means to us and ultimately how, of course, then the clicker doesn't want to work on the very first slide there. So, all right, there we go. So, okay. We'll do it this way. So, all right. So what we're going to cover tonight is what we consider the fastest and really smartest route to you to have your own credible and reputable real estate business or a side hustle. What we find is many people that we work with, this is a side hustle for them that in many ways overcomes or overtakes their existing W-2 income. Depends how active you want to become and how aggressive ultimately you want to get into the market. But a lot of what we do, and to some of what Greg said at the very outset here, it has to do with lease option, lease purchase, creative financing. And in many of those deals, we have no money or no credit in those deals. And that's very appealing for a lot of people for obvious reasons. So our training, we believe, gives every aspiring real estate investor the best chance to succeed, period. If you're doing deals, looking to do deals, looking to do more deals, looking to do more creative deals, just more of a kind of a round of multiple deals, we believe that we have the best training that's out there, period. We've got the experience behind it, and you're going to see some examples tonight as to why. So, all right, big question I always like to ask people is, how hard are you working to make $10,000? If you took a $10,000 check and you divided it into the hours that you had to give to get that $10,000, how hard would that be? How many hours does that really correlate to? Reason I ask that is because that's really a minimum benchmark for us when it comes to doing deals. So when we put a home under contract, in particular, when we're using no cash, no credit, our baseline minimum that we want to make in every deal is $10,000. And you can do that in literally a matter of weeks with the right training, the right approach, ultimately the right scripts, et cetera, et cetera. But how hard would it be, and how hard is it for you to make $10,000? If you could cash one of those checks a month, if you could do it multiple times, obviously throughout the year, what would that ultimately do for your life and your current financial situation? So Nate Sear, my buddy Nate up in New Jersey, he has been cashing some big checks lately. And we find that these types of deals are anywhere, again, 10 is really our minimum. Average is going to be closer to 15,000, but really anywhere from $20,000 to $90,000 you can make on these deals that really require none of your own cash and none of your own credit. It's, again, goes down to the know-how. So what business or side hustle can you start right now that you don't need employees, you don't need a monthly overhead with a lease, a brick and mortar office, and startup fees really are not anywhere near what you would buy for an existing business that would be franchise or any other variation there. Very, very normal and not insane fees, as we say. Again, real estate is one of those conduits that can really give you financial freedom. So again, if you had $10,000 every month to your bank account, what would that look like? This is a picture of Will and LaShonda Clark in Missouri. They were affiliates of ours, and they did a subject to deal. I'm actually going to break it down here in this training. Made $94,000 on that deal, and we probably can't zoom in on that check, but it was a rhetorical question that I asked Will. I said, Will, how many times have you brought a check home for that amount? And of course, knew the answer, but that was just one time, of course. But $94,000 on one of their very first deals, and that was a deal that actually came to us dead on arrival. And I'm going to tell you how we resuscitated that here in just a bit. So, what about Airbnbs? One of the things that has become very popular over the past several years are the Airbnbs, vacation rentals, VRBOs. What if you could buy Airbnbs and have cash flowing properties without using any of your own cash, or in some cases, even your own credit? That's what Sean did last year. So Sean Keelty is one of our affiliates in Los Angeles area. And I had a mastermind in 2021. Sean was a part of that. And we were teaching how to raise private money, how to really structure some of the higher end deals, including Airbnbs. And Sean, we had a goal breakout session, and we have kind of some parameters as to how we want people to brainstorm. And everyone had their own individual time. Sean had written a goal that he wanted to raise $3 million the next year. One of the things I always try to do, I encourage people. I'm a big thinker. I believe you've got to think big if you want to accomplish big things out there. So I'm always encouraging people to take the lid off. Don't put a ceiling on your thoughts, but not having raised a nickel in his life and wanting to raise $3 million that next year was a fairly high benchmark for him. So evidently I made a face or said something that served as a good motivator for him. So that next year, Sean ended up doing over $5 million in Airbnbs and raised that money, and has some amazing cash flowing properties that are in his portfolio right now. So if you stay to the end, I'm going to give you an irresistible and really an honest, and I'm having trouble seeing, guys, with this. Can you get these off of the side here? There we go. So there we go. Having trouble seeing my own screen here. Forgive me. So I want to tell you at the very end, we're going to give you a chance to really kind of peek behind the curtain of our business and show you kind of some of our secret sauce and the secret formulas that we use to do our deals. And so there we go. Thank you, sir. All right. Much better. So, okay. All right. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm known as the pretty face of pink. You can obviously see why. Facetious there. And I've done this 26 years full time. In fact, I'll tell you my story here in just a minute, but bought my first house at 14 years old. Told the story many, many times. I had a lot of help. I was mowing grass, making some money on the side, and I was able to buy a tax lien property at 1010 King Street. Had a lot of help from my dad and a lot of help from his attorney. And it's funny, when I started doing presentations a few years ago, it would be kind of neat to put my very first deal up on the slide to kind of show what my first house looked like. And so got on Google Maps and pulled up 1010 King Street, and lo and behold, it was a parking lot. It had been demolished, and not because they were developing it and it was a great area, because it really was a pretty rough property and ultimately didn't stand the test of time. But bought it for $1,500 and wholesaling it for $4,200. And I remember that was like all the money in the world, and certainly gave me the entrepreneurial bug and really planned the next phases of my life. And certainly here we are many, many years later, still doing what I love. So my company is Little Pink House of America. As Greg mentioned, he's been down here to our company headquarters in Jacksonville, Florida. I don't know if you can see, we've got a pink wall. I mean, how many offices have a pink wall? We call it our Pepto-Bismol wall, but this is our training room, which is actually kind of neat, and you probably can't see too much of it, but this is where we have our trainings. We have people down here for live trainings. They have a chance to come and really spend time with us and really peek behind the curtain and see how we do what we do every day of the week and what makes our operation tick. And so currently we have over 100 affiliates throughout North America, and those are partners of ours that are under our umbrella, under the Little Pink Houses of America umbrella, doing deals with our scripts, contracts, a lot of our direction support, et cetera, et cetera. Really proud of what we've accomplished. We have a long way to go, but I'm proud of the path that we are on, and certainly have a great foundation with affiliates in different markets around the country. And to date, I've raised over $100 million of private money, and that is a part of what we do here. Again, I'm going to get back to that word complete, because there's something that we've learned over the years that really is important in your real estate success. I go so far as to say it's critical, and that is really understanding multiple facets of real estate, and what we say being the complete investor. Again, I'm going to tie that down here as we go. So that's a little about myself. And question I get asked often: why do you call it Little Pink Houses of America? In fact, I always ask people at the beginning, how many people laughed when they heard our name, and many people raised their hands. And I say, well, how many people forgot our name? And of course, most haven't forgotten. It's a branding angle that we've had a lot of success with. I'd love to tell you it was all by design. We knew that this was going to be a brand that caught fire, and that just isn't the case. We a couple of ways it came together. I don't know if you guys remember the John Cougar Mellencamp song from the 80s, Ain't That America, I believe is the title, talks about little pink houses for you and me. It's kind of his version and our interpretation of everybody owning their slice of the American dream. And ultimately, we wanted to use pink as our theme color. We have pink lock boxes. We have pink signs. You guys probably saw the pink rider sign in one of our videos here. Ultimately, pink is a color that really stands out. We also have a breast cancer charity that we donate to, and we ask all of our affiliates to donate to. So there's certainly a tie-in there as well. Of America was by design because we knew as we launched, we were going to replicate what we did in a lot of markets across the country. And that's exactly what we're doing here. So, all right, these are just some of the pictures, some of our trainings here. So, well, let me give you kind of my what we call my epiphany story. And as I'm thinking about preparation tonight, across my mind, everybody's not where you are entirely being hired. More of a tolerant than others, but usually, at least in my I've observed, there's kind of that you rock bottom or feel like it's that moment never will again. And that happened to me. I've told this many times, and used to even get choked up in telling it. But I have fortunate enough to have two beautiful daughters and a son, 16, 10, and 8. Thank God my daughters look like their mother, not like me. And when my 16-year-old was just 5, so 11 years ago, she had a soccer game in the morning, and it was a Saturday morning, and we went to the game, and we were getting her drive-through at McDonald's for a kind of reward for her game, getting her Happy Meal. That's what she wanted. So I'm in the drive-through line, and dawned on me that I had some ACHs that had come out that day before, which would have been Friday. Now, at this time, I didn't have any credit cards. I didn't have much of any credit. I'd actually lost everything in the 2008 downturn. In fact, that's a whole nother story, but we had at our height 652 properties, over $30 million worth of real estate. Thought we were conservative with our loan to values, thought we were smarter than the average bear. And ultimately, the 2008 crash took us down and proved us to be incorrect with what we had thought was really a safe place. So after that, I learned to live without credit because I didn't have any. And in this case, didn't have credit cards. So all I had available to buy breakfast for my daughter was my debit card. Well, 2 cars ahead of me, and I'm thinking, oh crap, I forgot I had these ACHs. So I pull up my account real quick, find out that I'm overdrawn. So unfortunately, I couldn't get my daughter McDonald's. And as I looked in the mirror and made up some lame excuse as to why we couldn't stay, I just remember the look in her face. And again, it was a Happy Meal and certainly wasn't the end of the world. But as a dad that wants to provide the best life for my kids, I couldn't buy a stinking Happy Meal. It's one of those pit feelings in your gut that you don't ever want to experience again. And as I said, as I kind of prefaced the story, everybody, I believe, has had those moments where they want change in their life. Everybody walking the planet wishes something was different about their life. That's just normal. But you have to be at a point where you want change so bad that it just is the time. And you have to take action in those moments. And that's exactly what I did. I knew there was a better way to doing what we did. And so at that point, I had trouble buying my daughter lunch. And now, as we put in our slide here, I feed my whole office lunch at least twice a week. And it's usually Thai food. We have a Thai budget here. It's the best Thai food place across the street. But we have a lot of fun buying lunches, and something that's kind of special to me. So anyway, before you can master real estate, I want you to dispel a little bit of what you know about real estate investing, because when people come to our trainings, one of the first requests I have are to kind of come as a blank slate, come with an open mind. We're not contrarian by any stretch of the imagination. We don't teach strategies and trainings that are totally polar opposite of everything that would be kind of mainstream, but we do have unique ways of doing things. We have certain formulas, certain strategies, certain scripting, certain approaches with how we do what we do that would be a little bit different in many cases than prior trainings that you may have been to. When we have agents and brokers that attend our trainings, we have the same request. Come here as a blank slate, kind of open your mind to what we're going to share with you. It might be a little bit out of the norm, out of the box, but it's very effective for us. And so we do ask that people kind of have an open mind to what we're going to share. So I can tell you right off the bat, if anybody here watching is wholesaling, which I'm certain there are some out there that are wholesaling, it is absolutely, in my opinion, the worst place you could get started in real estate. A lot of reasons for that. First and foremost, it's a very much kind of cesspool, if you will, of folks that are competing for those off-market deals, for the deals that need work. Many wholesalers do this thing called daisy chaining, where one will get the contract, but 6 others are trying to market it as well. And of course, everybody gets a slice of the pie. The pie gets smaller and smaller the more people that are involved trying to sell it. But very competitive, very cutthroat. You also are making promises in many cases that you have no intentions of keeping, whether you're going to buy the house or not. And sometimes the areas are not as savory, but it's a very, very cutthroat dog eat dog business, and very, very hard to implement, especially as a starting point. So a lot of people will start at wholesaling because you really don't need to have money. You tie up a contract and you'll assign that to another investor. Nothing wrong with that. Let me be clear. We wholesale properties here just by virtue of deals, because we're in the game and we have deals that we may or may not want to close on. In fact, right now we have a deal on a street called Wakefield, and kind of a cool little story. I'll give you one little nugget. My first nugget, hopefully I can give you lots of them tonight, but we send a letter out to all of the probate attorneys in our town. You can find a list of probate attorneys many, many places. They have the bar directories online. Very easy to find who's probate. Divorce attorneys could really fall under that same kind of auspice. And a very simple letter. I would be delighted to give it, Greg, to your group. If you want the letter, send us a note. We can shoot it over and put it up so you guys can get access to it. But we send this letter out. It's very soft. It's just a very much an introductory letter to these divorce probate attorneys that have potentially real estate opportunities they need to liquidate. We let them know who we are, that we're here. We'll take good care of any referral they give us, and ultimately we'll make a fair offer within a very short window of time. We send those out and we get calls. Well, just about 3 weeks ago, we got a call from a probate attorney, had a property, put us in touch, and ultimately we put the house under contract. Not a special place. And frankly, it's not a place we really want to end up taking the long dollar. So what are we doing? We're wholesaling it. So put under contract, we're going to try to wholesale it. So you'll have those opportunities. But if that was my primary business mode, my primary method of transacting deals, that's a rough ride. And I can tell you that it's really, we highly, highly discourage people from starting as wholesalers. You're taking the short dollar, leaving money on the table for the long dollar. And ultimately those profits can get diminished very, very quickly. So, and what's funny is we get a lot of responses to that ad. In fact, we did a black and white where we flipping the cue cards, and we got a lot of responses to that. So again, a lot of competition. You have to make a lot of offers before one gets accepted. You have a lot of very small profit for the work involved. In fact, I've had a lot of wholesalers come through our training, and many of them transacted a lot of deals, 50, 60, 70 deals a year, quite literally to make 15, 20 grand. When you break it down, the time that they spent doing these deals and ultimately what they got paid, you could make more working at Best Buy or any sort of retail store. And that's not a knock on Best Buy. It's just a fact that you can make as much doing that as you do wholesaling, because your cost can be so high to generate the leads. Ultimately, it doesn't make sense in the end. So you don't have residual income. And one of the things we've seen happen in our own world is that people that have wholesaling as their primary mode of doing real estate investing can quit on their dream. It just can be a very, very rough ride. So we still teach it. And I'm sharing this because we teach other things that we think are better. It's just one of the tools in our toolbox. Remember that complete real estate investor. Love the creative. That's the backbone of what we do here. Lease purchase, lease option, executive lease purchase, which is one of our monikers, owner financing, subject to, and I'm a little ahead of myself here, but these are all strategies that we teach and train and cover. And what I can tell you is this: if you understand creative financing, if you understand non-traditional real estate, those strategies I just mentioned, lease op, sub two, lease purchase, owner financing, installment type contracts, agreements for deed, land installment contract, which is again one of the tools in our toolbox that we use. When you understand how to transact those, any deal that comes across your desk, you can really slice and dice, see if there's merit to the deal. If there is, you can see how to really maximize the profit potential. When you are working with terms, there are a lot of ways that you can really maximize the dollar. So it's why we love terms deals. It's why we really pride ourselves on being the creative specialist, non-traditional. When you understand that, there's no deal that you can't take down, which is why we're so big on making sure that you do understand it. So we do teach wholesaling, even though we don't want you to do only wholesaling. We also teach what we call wholetailing. Well, what the heck is wholetailing? It's wholesaling retail properties. And what happens is that when we call a seller, we have a lead generated, and I'm going to tell you where we get some of our leads. We get many on Zillow. We get many on the for sale by owner websites. Zillow seems to always pop up at the top there, but much of our leads, or many of our leads, I should say, cost us no money. So when we pitch them, our script, which is very distinct, it's very, very much crafted over a lot of years, a lot of mistakes, a lot of trips to houses that we wish we wouldn't have made had we asked some of these questions in our initial phone script. That script is really, really good. If a seller isn't amenable to that, the seller says, I can't do terms for whatever reason. And I will tell you, usually 3 or 4 out of 10 people that we call are open to terms, and really 1 or 2 out of 10 are what we're really hoping to close. So statistically, 1 or 2 out of 10 calls you should have as viable candidates for a terms type sale. So if a seller is amenable, great, you pursue that. If they're not amenable, but they have some latitude in the price, we will sometimes put it under an option agreement, and then we will take it out and market it to some of our more retail type buyers. And what we have found is many sellers aren't good at marketing. Many sellers don't know how to take good pictures. Many sellers don't want to show the house. They don't want to deal with buyers. They don't want to write contracts, don't really know necessarily what they're doing. What they do know is that they sure as heck don't want to pay a realtor a commission. So they're advertising it by owner. And we've done a lot of these deals and have made really good money off of them by simply putting it under an option and then doing the marketing in a much better way and handling some of those calls. So wholetailing, again, is just a sliver of what we train here, but it's one of those pivot options in creative financing when you're looking to do non-traditional deals, looking to do lease purchase, looking to do installment type contracts, and it's not a fit for the seller. It's good to have a pivot so that that lead doesn't go in the garbage. And by the way, let me say one thing before I forget. If you're wholesaling out there right now, I can tell you, you're throwing away probably 90% of your leads because it's a numbers game, and maybe even more than that, 95% of your leads go in the garbage. So they have to have enough meat on the bone if you're a wholesaler to be able to assign that contract to another party and ultimately make money off of that. So if they don't have enough meat on the bone up front, chances are it's going to go in the garbage. What if you had other strategies that you could propose to that potential deal if it's not a good fit for wholesale? What if a terms type deal? What if a subject to? What if a owner finance, depending? I mean, there are many variations that you can propose if wholesaling isn't going to work. And again, those are some of the tools that we have in our toolbox here for you. So why we like some of the wholetailing, bigger spread, bigger payday. By the way, I will tell you, we target what we consider kind of middle America. We don't do war zones. I cut my teeth in war zones. That's where my dad bought a lot of the properties in his early days, and I learned very quickly. Those are a lot of hard work for typically not a lot of the juice and the squeeze, if you will, not usually worth the effort. And it can be really hard to work in those areas. Conversely, we don't really do luxury high end, at least as a whole. It's not where we market and invest in primarily. Now, we have some higher dollar properties that we have, but as far as buying, selling, creative, non-traditional, we're really looking at that middle of America. As an example, Jacksonville, our price point, really our sweet spot is going to be somewhere between $150,000 and $350,000. Now, that's going to be relative to where you live. If you live in California or high dollar market, obviously your median price range is going to be higher. But when you're targeting these kind of what we consider, again, middle of the road, good areas, good schools, good families, you have decent sized down payments, decent sized monthly payments, which allow you to participate in that, and certainly in the cash flow as well. So when you're dealing in prettier houses, you deal in safer neighborhoods, you have less competition. And again, you have that option to pitch terms if it's not going to be a fit for them. You get to pitch the wholesaling if, in fact, terms aren't going to work. So, what are terms, by the way, for those that don't know? Terms is something that we refer to anytime it's a sale where a seller will receive payments toward the purchase. So an arm's length transaction is where you have a willing buyer, willing seller. Buyer goes to the bank, gets a loan, pays the seller off. That deal is arm's length. That is a traditional in the box type deal. Terms deals or creative financing, you'll hear me refer to that here, creative financing as terms deals, is again anything that will fall outside of that arm's length transaction. That's a subject to, that is an owner financing, that is a lease purchase. These are strategies, investing strategies, where the seller is essentially agreeing to accept payments toward the purchase of their home for whatever period of time that you conclude. So terms deals really encompass all of those strategies, but they're non-traditional. And again, where the seller is willing to accept payments. And if you're the seller, it means you're willing to take payments from a potential buyer. So owner financing, subject to, lease option, these all fall under the auspices of a non-traditional creative financing type terms sale. We love them. Owner financing, one of my favorites. Subject to is like the unicorn. Every time we mention it, people get really excited. I've got a great course on subject twos. That's not what I'm here to talk about, but I can tell you, we have put the subject to package together. I've not seen anything as thorough and as really as efficient. And the script, I think, is great where you find the leads, but that's not what we're here for. So, and then lease options. These are really our specialization. I don't know if you can see some of the signs on our back, but we've got executive lease purchase as kind of one of our monikers. And it's one of the things that really separates us. So, well, why are terms deals so sexy? You know, Greg had mentioned at the outset some of the training he had undertaken with us here. And he can tell you why some of the high points that we convey in our script, what makes these deals really what we call sexy, not only for you, but also for the parties that are involved. So as far as you as an investor, you don't need cash in most cases. You don't need credit. You have a very unique value proposition that you're going to propose to them. We believe, and I say this every time we give a presentation, in having a win-win-win transaction. The buyer wins, the seller wins, and we win. That's how we want to do business. And I tell people every time I present that we like going to the closing table and having everybody leave feeling like they got a victory. That's how we want to do business. You don't have to have a winner and a loser. You can have all winners at the closing table. I've always believed when you go into a deal with that mindset, with that attitude to have everybody leave with a victory, good things usually happen. And so that's always our approach in any deal we do. We always want to do things right. We always want to do things where the other parties feel like they were treated well and they left with a victory, just like we did. Terms deals also have multiple paydays. I'm going to show you a slide here in just a minute where you have the potential to make 5 paydays on one deal. 5 paydays on one deal. So take wholesaling as an example. You wholesale a house, you put it under contract, you assign it, that's one payday, that's gone. You now have to recreate that. What if you could take that same lead, if you're a wholesaler that may go in the garbage because it doesn't have enough meat on the bone or equity, and you had the ability with new knowledge on how to not only put that under contract, but actually create 5 paydays where you get paid now, paid during the term of the agreement, and then paid again at the end in 5 different ways. I mean, it's a no-brainer. You should want the one that has obviously multiple paydays. And then the golden goose, which is just another part of the payday, or excuse me, of the term strategy. The golden goose is the goose that keeps laying the golden eggs. And these deals continue to pay you and pay you and pay you. And so there's a reason that we love them. And there's a reason that you guys should love them as well. If you don't know terms deals and you want to be in real estate, you want to do more deals, do deals, period, you'd be well served to really get a good handle on those. It'll help you in any deal that you're doing. So one more kind of point is why these are so sexy. This unique value proposition that you have, a terms deal is really 10 times easier to sell than a traditional deal, because most people don't know this, but 70% of buyers cannot walk into the bank. Someone walking down the street cannot walk into Chase Bank, Wells Fargo, and qualify for an institutional loan today. 7 out of 10 people cannot qualify just on their own merits today with an institutional bank. And so that opens up to the masses of who you can sell a property to. In fact, tough sells on the traditional market. When they get into the non-traditional market, when you're selling them for terms, it's a brand new opportunity for buyers that are terms buyers, but you have literally twice the pool of people to sell to, which makes it easier in our experience when you're property. So, and again, you get the multiple paydays. We've even coined a phrase here, the Pentagon profit sphere. And the Pentagon profit sphere puts a smile on my face. It's where you literally have the 5 paydays. And I got to tell you, it's important to distinguish or maybe disclose this. You don't get 5 paydays on every terms deal. When you do that, you are pretty awesome at investing. They don't exist on every deal. Now you have to know what to look for when you're going to the deals. And if you know what to look for, you can try to identify 5 because 5 paydays exist. But not every deal is going to present that. It's just good to know how to get there and what to look for. But when you hit all 5 paydays on one deal, we call that the Pentagon profit sphere. We've had a couple of those happen here. So there's the old golden goose. Let me give you a couple examples here. This is Nate. Nate, I showed you a picture of his check up front. Nate's up in Jersey. Nate has used our executive lease purchase strategy here to transact multiple deals. In fact, these are 2 that he did, no cash, no credit. He was able to tie the properties up with our agreements. We have custom-made agreements that we had made by our own law firm. They are works of art. They are one page. Believe it or not, they're so simple. A 12-year, 10-year-old could really walk you through it. I'm not sure that's entirely true, but we say it. She would do a good job trying to get you there. Whole point is we made them so
Uh-oh. Don't know what happened, guys.
that scares people. Ours are one page, very simple to understand. And again, when you are showing up and you're standing behind what you do, want people to have a victory and feel like they won, really good things can and will happen. So Nate tied up these properties using our contracts, using our scripts. We marketed them with him and for him. And ultimately he found a buyer that fit the what we were looking for. On the first one, he made $23,000. On the next one, he made $10,000. And it's funny, I look at the 10,000 and feel like that's such a low profit because compared to the profits we're used to making, that really is the bottom. Now we've made under 10, let me be really fair, but when we're only making 10, it's almost a little bit of a letdown. So we want you to make a lot more than 10. And when you're doing things the right way, you really should be able to. But these closed right before Christmas, by the way, must not have that slide, but $35,000 or $33,000 right before Christmas. Nate had a great Christmas, and ultimately that could be you doing the same deals. Here is one of my favorites. This is Tan in Atlanta. Tan hit the Pentagon. She hit all 5 paydays, and I think my next slide, I'm going to show you exactly what they are. But Tan has definitely got the it factor, and she's really, really good. She also learns what we were and went and up action. And really a clear statement, but it's not taking action. A difference maker out there and took action. Took what we gave and went and put it into play. So $45,000. Got some videos on this as well, but the break, what these 5 pay. Greg, if anybody wants these slides, we can send them to them. People are welcome to screenshot. If anybody wants any of the information we're sharing, just let us know. We're glad to give that to you. Fantastic, absolutely. Fantastic. All right, very good. So, but the 5 paydays that we can create in any sort of terms deal are as follows. So first of all, we make, in many cases, the lion's share of what we make in the form of the down payment that the buyer brings to the table. So we're selling a deal on terms. We're selling a lease purchase or executive lease purchase when we're using our screw the banks rider, right? And meant to get your attention. We get people that call on that, and we probably offend some people at the same time. But when we're selling a property,
we have to just wait for it to clear up. Trying not to touch anything. This is the only thing to go. Happen to be on the internet. Ooh.
First month's payment. So when the buyer, our buyer, moves into the property, they put a down payment down. They also make their first payment at that time. We keep that first payment. That's part of how we get paid. Again, that's in our script. It's how we will approach a seller. So right now we've carved out 2 paydays before or at the time the buyer moves in. The third payday is cash flow. If you're doing a terms deal, which means you're buying it on terms and selling it on terms, you must create a cash flow spread. The rule of thumb is really $300 we'd like to see as a minimum. In this case with Tan, she only carved out $200, but $200 a month is residual income. It's the definition of passive income. She's doing no work to receive that money. And over the course of a year, that's $2,400 extra dollars that she made simply by carving out that cash flow spread. So one of the things we work on in our trainings is making sure that you negotiate your monthly payment with your seller and that you have a spread above and beyond that. So if you're paying your seller $1,000, we would like you to collect at least $1,300 to make it worth your while. So profit center number 3 in the Pentagon is going to be your monthly cash flow. In our initial script, when we're talking to our seller, we tell them we get paid in a few ways. We keep the down payment, we keep the very first payment, and we also will take the very last payment right before our buyer is going to get a bank loan or get a mortgage and ultimately pay the seller off. We tell them that, and we let them know we want to be involved and we want to walk with our buyer to the finish line. Of course, we're going to do that already, but it's one more payday that we're able to carve out. And so how you say things dictates what you make. When you can follow our script and when you can ask these questions with the right intonation and really in the right fashion, postured, confident in what you're saying, most sellers are okay with it because you're solving a problem for them. You're coming in with a creative solution to what in many cases is a problem that they have, and they're looking for you ultimately to help them solve that. So now, sometimes sellers will push back and they're not comfortable making or giving both payments, but again, you've got to ask for these things up front and you have to ask for them in the right way. And the 5th and final payday is really what we call the back end equity spread. It's the difference between what your buyer owes you and what you owe your seller. And so in many cases, that last payday when the buyer goes and gets a bank loan is going to be your biggest payday. It depends on what you've negotiated. We like when you're front loaded, when you make a bunch of money up front, but we also like it when you make a bunch of money in the back, when it means when the buyer walks through our program and ultimately gets a traditional mortgage. So you take those 5 profit centers, you can add up to quite a bit of money. In this case, Ton made $45,000. She didn't have some massive spread. She didn't have a seller that said, I'm desperate, I need to sell, I'll give you for 200, and she sold it for 245. She was able to carve out her spread, and ultimately the 45,000 added up through the multiple paydays. Down payment, first month's payment, the monthly cash flow spread, the very last payment, and then again, what we call that back end equity spread. When our buyer goes to closing, we want you to get a big payday as well. And let me just tell you briefly about our program because it's very unique. It's something that we've done a long time and some are really proud of. So we have a few banks that we work with. And in fact, we have a particular lender, if you will, who has licenses and reciprocations in all 50 states. It would be considered a subprime type lender, BC credit type paper from those that were around pre-2008. So these are lenders that work with buyers that may have not perfect credentials, and that's really who we sell to. But if I could show you over here to my left, one of the phrases that we have as a mission statement is very simple. We create homeowners. It's one of the things that we're proud of. We want to create homeowners. We believe in improving neighborhoods and creating legacies for families. And so our program is really designed to walk people through the program, ultimately to a successful bank loan. So very quickly, when we have a buyer that we've identified as a potential good fit, they like the home, we like them, they will submit all the documents that they need for underwriting, like you would go to a Chase Bank or Wells Fargo. They submit this to our particular lender. We know they're not going to get approved or qualified today. That's not really what we're looking for. What we're looking for is really 2 factors. Why are they not approved? Why are they denied for the loan? Number 1. And number 2, what do they need to do to become successful in ultimately getting the loan? And what are the steps within that to ultimately become successful? We will take those pieces of information, actually wrap our entire lease purchase agreement around that time frame and those requirements. Our buyer, by virtue of our agreement, has to work with this lender every month. In some cases, it's credit repair. Other cases, it's just building credit. Other cases, it's filing tax returns where you show some income. We sell to a lot of self-employed business owners. And as we say, self-employed business owners really have 2 rules. You make as much money as you can, and you write off as much as you can as well. Unfortunately, Uncle Sam, and you pay less taxes, but you're going to be looked at by banks, which at your net income on your tax return. So if you make a bunch of money, but write it all off, you're not going to qualify for a good loan. We sell houses to a lot of folks that fall into that category. When they're in our program and they walk through successfully with this lender, the lender will make the loan to them at the end of the term, which is a big part of why it's a successful program. Others out there that may teach this or do this lease purchase, land contracts, kind of non-traditional, they don't really have a focus on the buyer getting a loan at the end of the term. If the buyer gets a loan, great. If they don't, great. In fact, I think a lot of people hope they don't get a loan so they could go do it again. I'm not judging any of that. What I'm saying is part of what we train and part of our strategy is creating homeowners. It's something that we're proud of, and it really is a great system that's out there. So again, 70% can't qualify. They need time, which is what you give them when you sell on terms, which is part of the appeal. Another question I get though is, why would a seller sell on terms if they don't, well, not so much that they don't have to, but what's their motivation for doing so? Well, guess what? Many of them don't sell on terms. I gave you some statistics here a few minutes ago. Out of 10 callers or 10 sellers that we call, usually only 3 or 4 would be open or amenable to it. And usually 1 or 2 are going to go under contract. Now, from a sales statistic standpoint, 10 to 20% of the leads you call getting under contract is actually pretty good. However, you are going to have the majority of the people you call saying, no, I'm not interested. So can't be fearful of rejection. You can't get your feelings hurt easy. This is sales. Sometimes you got to make some phone calls, but that's why we have a pivot point if this isn't for the seller that we talk to. That's where we can come back with wholetailing. We also can make it really appealing for sellers. By the way, for sellers that are trying to sell and are amenable to selling on terms, we will agree to a very fair price for them. In fact, in many cases, more than we would be willing to pay for cash, because we don't have to pay cash. We also give them the payments that are made every month on top of what we agree to. So the payments that we ultimately collect and give to the seller, they don't credit off of the bottom line. So not only will the seller get a good price for the home, there's no commissions when you work with us, but they're going to get 12 to 18 payments on top of the price we agree to. So the math can be really sexy for the seller, can be very much tip me over, because they're going to make a lot more money in the end. And don't like realtors. You put that in. Don't like, we love realtors here. I mean, most of the realtors. No, we work with realtors all the time. In fact, it might have been Mary Beth or someone I was talking to. They said, yeah, I hear you poke fun at realtors and you have it. And I said, we have fun with them, but we work very closely with them. And obviously they do a great job. And so we just like to pick on them. I can't help it. So, all right, how many calls do I have to do to get a deal? I kind of gave you those statistics already. I can tell you that the source of your lead and ultimately what you say, your training, confidence, big difference maker. And that's probably a Here's an example of a lead sheet, and you can see we whack them up pretty good there. In most cases, it's multiple calls. You're not going to get it on a 1-call type close. And what we also have are multiple scripts. And what we've learned over the years is a few things in this slide. One is we have a 2-call process. I don't have time to tell you all about why. There's a psychology behind that. So we have a 1st call script and a 2nd call script. We also have objections and rebuttals. And what I can tell you about scripts, and you may know this already, you can have a script mastered. You can knock it out of the park, but if the other party asks you a question or has an objection, or what we call an objection, and you can't answer that timely, confidently, with the right answer, your entire deal can be blown up because of the fact that you don't have the answers quickly for the seller. So we not only train on the script, we train on the rebuttals as well, because those are just as important. We've got some really great scripts there. So question, would you make a dozen calls a week and visit a few houses a month if you could make an extra $10,000? We work around here. We tell people that often. This is not a get rich quick thing, but we also tell people the reality of the time invested. Depending on how much you want to make, how much you want to get into the business is going to dictate how much time you spend, which ultimately dictate how. But make a dozen calls a week and visit a few houses every month, that'd be worth $10,000 if you're probably at the right place here. So if you just did a minimum spread, and again, 15 is closer to our average on these no cash, no credit deals, but you just did one a month, that would be another $120,000 a year as a side hustle. If you just did one deal every other month, that's dollars, and cash, none of your own credit. So what happens when you get a warm lead? Next, get the contract. It's one of my favorite pieces of advice. When you have a lead that comes in, no matter what it is, if you think there's a potential for a deal there, whether it's wholesale, whether it's wholetail, whether it's a lease purchase, executive lease purchase, whether it's a subject to, maybe you're not entirely sure. Maybe you don't know if you want to keep it. Maybe you don't know if you want to wholesale. Maybe you don't know if you want to actually buy it and fix and flip it. Maybe you don't know if it has the potential to be an executive lease purchase, or maybe you want to take it some ways that you can slice it, but you may not know yet. You may not know what your exit strategy is. And I see people all the time freeze. They go, well, I don't know what I want to get the contract. You've got nothing to talk about until you get the Let me take it one step. Our contracts read that when we put it under contract, we have options now. We can do different scenarios and do different exit strategies depending on what the market tells us. We also have really what you call an out clause where we're not bound. We're okay to get out of the deal. What you want to do with it. It's counterintuitive. Most people don't tell you to do that. Most people be maybe apprehensive to do that, but go get the contract. Whether someone says, hey, look, my grandma died and she lives in the cul-de-sac as one of our favorite examples, and she's lived there 60 years, haven't touched the place in 55 years, smoked, the walls are yellow, air conditioning unit is the original, needs everything that you can imagine, but it's worth $300,000. You could probably buy it for $125 or $130 because it needs so much work. They're not going to accept terms if mom died and you have a bunch of heirs. Heirs want to see cash. So you now have to agree to a contract of $125,000 cash. Well, you say, well, I don't have cash. I don't know private investors. I don't know what I'm going to do here. What should I do? My advice is go get the contract. Put under contract. Give yourself 30 days to close. You now have options. And at the end of the day, you could always assign it wholesale. But because you might have been first in the door, now you have options. If you have a warm lead, my best advice, go get the contract, and then you can kind of figure out what your exit strategy might look like. Here's an example of our one-page agreement. Now, we use what's called a contract for deed or an agreement for deed as really our primary mechanism. The reason we use that, it's a very strong agreement. What that simply means is it gives us an interest in buying the property from day one, but buying it on terms. So we don't use a purchase and sale agreement or buying on terms. You could, but we have this specifically crafted for what we do. Very, very easy to understand. And it gives us the ability to pivot if we need to, which simply means if we choose not to buy it on a contract for deed, we can pursue other options. But I will tell you, having a contract that's a tool for you, not just a function of the deal, but an actual tool, is really a benefit. And let me just make sure I'm clear what I'm saying. When you have a one-page agreement that's really easy to understand and the seller is comfortable with it and it's easy to sign and we make it easy to sign, that's a tool to get the seller to sign the piece of paper in front of them. You have a big, bulky, legalese, realtor 18-page contract. There I go poking holes at realtors again. And things that scare people, you can lose the deal because of that. You also have people that have to sit there, sellers that'll have to read this whole thing and take 20 minutes to make sure that they're comfortable. You make it easy for them to sign. You make it easy to do business. When you go to a seller's house, if you're on an appointment, you're going to a seller's house that has a lead that you are working. You have one objective. The objective is to leave with a contract, right? I mean, isn't that what you're going to the house for? Well, if you make it easy for that party to sign, you're enhancing your chances of leaving with a contract. If you show up with an 18-page, in Florida, they call them NEFAR and FARBAR and all these acronyms for these basically long contracts that scare people. So you show up with a one-page, you're going to enhance your chances of leaving, which is why we promote it, why we use it as a tool for our trainings. And so something that, again, is something really important to what we do. So our marketing, very simple. You take pictures, you post on Zillow, you post on Facebook, people will call. Here's an example of our yard signs, just as a quick FYI. We love our branding. We've learned that does make a big difference. So here's an example of just a Zillow ad. You can look our stuff up, but some of the buzz phrases that we like to use to attract buyers that might fall under this type of scenario. And again, they're in every market, in every city across the country. And in fact, again, statistically, 70% can't qualify. I don't care where you live. They're everywhere. And terms deals right now, especially, are getting even more hot as the market is kind of going through influx. So now you have buyer calls that come in. You or your VA can qualify those leads. We do use VA services sometimes. We tell people they are there for you, but you do the calls early on, save money, be frugal, and learn the systems before you start bringing on other expenses like a VA. So when you're qualifying a buyer, there's really one metric that matters more than anything. Who has $10,000 as a minimum? If you're qualifying, you don't come out and ask that question, but at the end of the day, our script tells you really only one thing you have to figure out: do they have money or do they not? We can work with credit, we can work with bankruptcies, we can work with divorces, we can work with the situations, self-employed especially, if they have money. they don't have money, then you're able to whack them at lightning speed, smile on my face, and get them off the phone and go on to the next deal. So because we're dealing with prettier house, I mentioned this earlier, sometimes we're getting $20,000 to $40,000 down. Here's that subject too I wanted to just kind of briefly tell you about here. This is Will and LaShawna. They're in right outside of Branson, I think, in Missouri. Bought it for $253, sold it $378. They bought it subject to. When they showed up with this deal, it was DOA, dead on an arrival, which again, it highlights why you have to be that complete real estate investor. You have to understand the creative aspect. You have to understand non-traditional when you can look at a deal and say, okay, here's what they owe. Here's how many payments they're behind. Here's the value. Here's what I think I can make on a cash flow. You have the ability to really structure any type of deal. So this deal was 3 or 4 payments behind, 10 grand in the red. Seller had pretty much checked out, was moving to be with family, was never going to get a loan again. We were able to put it under contract, take it out to the market. We had a buyer show up with 25 grand. We took the buyer's 25 grand, caught the 10 grand up for the mortgage to the seller, gave the seller 5 grand, put 10 grand in our pocket, had a cash flow spread through the deal. And ultimately, as the market kind of appreciated and we had some staggered pricing, Will and LaShawna were able to sell that deal and ultimately make just under 100 grand. In fact, with their upfront down payment, by the way, and the cash flow, they made over 100 grand on that deal. And look, I don't care where you live, what you do for a living. When you can make 100 grand on one deal, there's just not a lot of industries where you are able to do that. So, good for those guys. Yeah, that's right. Hashtag win out there. So look, a lot of these internet gurus and coaches, there's some really great people out there and there's some not so great people out there training, but they focus on one strategy. And that's at the very outset of this presentation. I told you, we want to train the complete real estate investor. And I've said it in different ways throughout, but ultimately, when you understand multiple strategies, you may find one that you migrate to. You may love the executive lease purchases. You may love subject twos. You may want to buy them for cash and fix and flip. You may love wholesaling. You may like wholesaling. All of those things are part of being a complete investor. But if you're only doing wholesaling, or you're only doing terms, or you're only doing fix and flips, what happens when the market changes? What happens when the market shifts? You are stuck holding the bag. And again, there's their one trick pony. A complete real estate investor can't rely on a single strategy, which is why we teach multiples. That leaves you holding the bag. One of my favorites, we like to buy them for cash, sell on terms. I always like to just throw that out there because when you see the math that the seller makes that we show in our examples, and we're the seller, we want to be the ones that ultimately can make the big payday. So we buy them for cash. You can buy them deeply distressed and at deep discounts. You rehab them, create value, and then sell them on terms. You get top profit or top dollar as far as the sale price. You get a top monthly payment, and you're able to create a homeowner at the same time. So a couple other things here, guys, and I'm getting to that point where I wanted to try to keep it under 1 hour here, but we also like to teach multiple offer scenarios where you make a cash offer and a terms offer. And this is a deal we did here, a street called Wilson. It's been a good one for us. We originally made the seller an offer of cash 125, terms 150, because when you're offering terms, you're not paying cash, so you can afford to pay more. Ultimately accepted the terms deal, went with 150, called 10 days later, said, would you still do the cash offer? We ended up negotiating to $130,000. What's really cool about this one is that we paid 130, we borrowed 160. By the way, the ARV was 230, so we're still very conservative where the loan to value was with our investor. And if I'm talking over anyone's head, I'm sorry. This is a great example of a deal that we put a lot of money in our pocket right up front. So we end up borrowing 160. We put about 18 grand into the property and then sold it where somebody came in as a buyer, said, I'll do the rest of the work. And we gave them a little bit of discount on the price, but we had $22,000 in the loan that we borrowed still left over in our bank account. And so we said, gosh, borrowed 160, paid 130, put about 18 in it, about 10 in it. We still have the difference, which I guess is about $20,000 left over. What do we do with that money? Do we give it back? No, you put it in your pocket. So you're borrowing some of the advanced proceeds in the loan. And when you borrow a loan, it's tax-free because you have to pay it back. I have a feeling I went really fast on that, and I'm sorry if I did. I'm trying to keep this under a certain time frame. But one of the things that we teach people here is you always want to over borrow a little bit on every deal you do if you're buying them for cash. Putting some money in the HIP National Bank right up front is really important to us, and will be really important to you if you end up doing deals where you are ultimately paying cash for them. Again, it's just one of the strategies that we teach here. We've had a couple paydays, made about 60 grand on the deal, and we'll take those. So cash can be king. We also teach how to find private money, how to where to raise it, what to say. We have give you the credibility kit behind it. We also will put some of our other affiliates and affiliate partners in touch with our others that don't have the cash. In fact, we just closed a deal on Friday. Today's Thursday, where we had one of our partners in California partnered with one of our other partners in Virginia. Did a deal, made about $42,000. Good for them. We've been doing a lot of that. So we're not going to show you where to find the leads, but we're also going to show you where to find the cash. And in many cases, we're going to provide the funding for you. So, but I don't have cash. I know most people say that. I don't know where to get it. Neither did Nate, Sean, Austin, Bobby, or Jenny. Bobby just retired, by the way. They're up to 22 or 23 doors. Austin is in North Carolina. He's a rock star. Just bought a second area or territory from us. These guys didn't know how to raise cash. They didn't have cash. They didn't have know-how. They went out and made it happen under our training. So, and Sean, remember being a little hesitant to go to people and ask for money. It's not what you're doing. You're presenting an opportunity. But when we're behind you, we're getting on the phone with you, that can be a big deal. And as I mentioned at the beginning, Sean did over $5 million of real estate deals in 2022 as 2 multi-million-dollar Airbnbs right outside of Orlando. So what's the fastest way to your first deal? It's not by making a lot of mistakes like I've made in my first 20 years in the industry. And look, School of Hard Knocks is where you really learn. But some of the best advice that I give, some of the best advice I've been given, Jeff Bezos has it, is find a good coach. And it doesn't have to be us. If you're out there, Greg Evans is a great coach. You want help. You want someone that can help you minimize the learning curve, minimize the mistakes that you make. School of Hard Knocks is not a badge of honor. It's something that you do if you just don't give up and you keep pushing. If you can shorten that curve and not have to go through the hard knocks, obviously, we would always tell you that's the wisest move. But we want you to be like Ton and Nate and Sean and Austin and Will. Where do you get started? So here's what I want to pitch you. Here's my big pitch of the night. Getting ready to sell you on something that costs you absolutely nothing. If you like what I'm telling you, and guys, I know I went at a very fast clip. I want to be respectful of your time and ultimately the fact that you're spending it with me. We're very thankful for that, but we want to respect your time. And so I went at a very good clip and tried to condense things. But if what I'm saying resonates with you at all, if you like our style, if you like our pink wall, if you like what we stand for, how we want to have win-wins in all the deals that we do, want to help people become homeowners, if we really also want to train investors to become complete investors. I know real estate can change your financial life. Everybody gets up in the morning to go to work, not because they want to, because they have to. If you could find ways to make more money and not have that need as much where you have to get up every day and go to a job that maybe you don't like, real estate is the conduit. So if you like what I've talked about tonight, we're going to be having a discovery day. Now, a discovery day, by definition, is something where we're going to kind of bring you in. Now, it's going to be virtual. We would love to have people here, but we make it virtual for obvious reasons. We are going to ask you to sign a non-disclosure before you join us. And the reason is we're going to share very, very openly kind of what we call some of our secret sauce, some of our secret formulas. We're going to give you real examples where we use a lot of our proprietary information. We're also going to give you some goodies at the same time. And so as I read here, it's a very immersive peek behind the curtain opportunity of a successful real estate operation today. And guys, I've found over the years, it's a rare opportunity where you can actually come into somebody's office, see exactly what they're doing, and have them kind of show you behind the curtain, under the hood. And it's a system, it's really important, that can be duplicated in any market. Doesn't matter where you live. What we do, you can do where you live. So the Discovery Day is going to bring you behind the scenes. It's 4 hours. We're going to have some of our successful affiliates on there giving you firsthand testimonials. You can ask them questions. We're going to give you our contracts so you can get your hands on these pieces of art that our attorneys get the credit for that they put together over the years. But we've got contracts for all 50 states, just about. There might be one or two that we don't have, but we've done deals in most of those, and we have reciprocating contracts in those states. Private money planning. How did Sean go to 0 to 5 million in 1 year? What exercises did we train him on, and what did we do to help him go out and raise the money? How you can generate more leads that you can handle for free, meaning seller leads, deals are coming in. We're going to show you exactly what we do with Facebook, Zillow, Craigslist, attorneys, agents, wholesalers. Put an awesome deal or offer together yesterday, just that came right through an agent, right online. It was a free lead, and we're going to teach you exactly how to find those, what to do. We're going to give you 8 different ways, 8 of our favorite ways on how to create control real estate, really premium real estate without even putting $1 down on the table. Fix and flips, Airbnbs, rental portfolio. Big believers in buy, rent, and hold. I did a TikTok video the other day and said, best advice is you buy 1 rental property a year for the next 10 years at an average price of $100,000. You will absolutely retire a millionaire. A lot of ways to get there, a lot of ways to get the funding, but having that as a path, bigger picture, huge proponents of that. Would love to see you create a rental portfolio as well, which equates to long-term wealth generation at the same time. So these are the goodies, Discovery Day, that you're going to get. And here's the big question. And what's it going to cost me? What's going to cost you to do this? And drum roll, please. Nothing. This is gratis on us. This is for Greg Evans Group. We're going to provide these things to you. Again, if this is something that makes sense, you like what you're seeing, it will be worth you spending 4 hours with us, and we'll have some things you'll sign ahead of time. We're going to really dive in, promise to give you a lot of really, really good value. There's no catch. In fact, while you learn about us, we'll get to learn about you. And that's really the part of Discovery Day. Look, we're looking for good people in different markets across the country. There are multiple ways to work with us. If you don't have money, don't let that be an impediment. We have ways that we can finance, and we have financing options for you. There's different levels. You may want to come in as an affiliate. You may not want to come in at all, but just get some training and education. And that's what we're going to give you on the Discovery Day. But it's an opportunity for you to get to know us, for us to get to know you, for us to really kind of take that wall down and show you exactly what we're doing here. And so at the same time, we get to learn about you. And ultimately, we want to make sure if you choose to work with us, that it's a good fit for you. And it's just as much a good fit for us. And that Discovery Day allows us to kind of have that back and forth. So we're growing our brand around the country, and we're looking for good people that fit our culture and really have the desire to make a positive difference. It's not cliche. We try to do that every single day. We want to be a blessing to those that we come in contact with. We want to make a lot of money, and we want to have fun doing it at the same time, and ultimately have people feel real good about how they do business with us. If that's you, if you feel that might be a good fit for you, then you'd want to join us on the Discovery Day. So if it's not you, but you just want to pick our brains and get our contracts and hear exactly how we do what we do, that's okay too. No strings attached. And I mean that, no strings attached. You join us on April 15th. So if you're interested, here's a link for you to go to pinkaffiliates.com/Discovery Day. We can leave this up, or we'll have some communication that goes out. We also, I do have a number I'm going to give you, but if you like what you've seen tonight and you want to get started, if you will, earlier, we're going to send out a special invitation for a $1 membership trial for our REI education platform. It's really neat what we put together here, and you have access to a lot of our stuff for a very, very low price. I'm going to give you the number here in just a second, but it's a special offer for Greg Evans Group if in fact you want to take advantage of it. If not, but you want to be on Discovery Day, we would hope to see you there. So, okay, here is the number. If you have questions, to text, but that is going to be our presentation for the night. I've gone a little bit more than an hour, so thank you for hanging tough with me. And at that point, I know there's been some chat, but Greg, if there are questions after the fact, I'm certainly glad to take them. Sometimes on these, it can be a little difficult to do the back and forth. And so, yeah, I think the best advice would be to text in questions. I will personally answer them, so they don't come right to me, but I'll have someone that brings them to me. I'll answer all your questions. And if you have interest in getting on a phone call, we certainly can make that work as well. So having said all that, again, thank you for spending some time with me on this beautiful Thursday night. And I hope you had some good takeaways. And I didn't really tell many funny jokes tonight, but at the end of the day, I wanted to get to the point. So hopefully that was some good takeaways for you. And at the end of the day, I hope to hear from you guys, and questions, bring them on. We would love to answer them. And aside from that, Greg, I'm going to turn it back over to you, sir.
God, guys, there's nothing I need to say except, Scott, thank you, thank you, thank you. You guys got a chance to meet Scott. I can tell you, I know Scott very well. And there's one thing you got to get with Scott, he hasn't done the whiteboard. When he gets into the whiteboard, he's known for the
Whiteboard
whiteboard.
junkie, man. I love that whiteboard. Man. Way
Yeah,
back
man,
there.
love that whiteboard. I learned this business through that whiteboard. And so,
Fantastic.
Scott,
Yeah,
I really appreciate you taking the time. Everybody take advantage of this golden opportunity. Do yourself a favor and spend that dollar. Because let me tell you, that training, that alone will prepare you for Discovery Day. This is an awesome opportunity for all of us. Scott, I cannot thank you enough. You and the entire team, Dan, Andrew. This has been something I've been wanting to do for a long, everybody can tell you who's here, they all know me. They know I talk about Little Pink all the time. And so I just want to thank you so much for doing this.
it's our pleasure. Thank you for
Thanks
having me.
again, Scott. Thank you, guys.
Can you put the link up for Discovery Day?
There it is right there. All right. We'll leave it up here for a minute. And Greg, thank you again. I appreciate the opportunity, sir, very much. And I encourage everyone to send in questions. And it's going to be a neat Discovery Day, something we really have a lot of fun doing. So I would encourage everyone to take advantage of that as well. Guys, thank you for your time. I hope everyone has a great rest of your Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Great.
you.